Welcome to Geek on Film with your hosts, Robbie Holmes and John Hosch. Hey folks, welcome to episode 17 of Geek on Film. I'm Robbie.
Hey guys, I am John. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, so we're gonna jump into our reviews, but I wanted to note that this week we joined the masses heading over to Mastodon. So if you're on Mastodon, you're looking for another way to connect with Geek on Film. If you go to geekonfilm.com, now in the footer is a Mastodon icon. It'll take you over to our where we are over on Film Herd, and you can find us there. I'm hopeful that we will be able to take part in that community as well as all the others.
So check us out.
Yeah. So we'll jump into some television. I think this is it's a less TV filled week for us than normal. I think things are getting shifting right now. And then I think there's been a lot of film. I mean, we were just looking at the schedule for next week. I can't believe the amount of films that are coming out from now until December 23rd. Like,
yeah, they're all trying.
I've seen a lot of them already, and I still can't keep up. So,
yeah.
We'll jump into some TV. We'll kick it off with some White Lotus. I think episode 4 of White Lotus is the sort of fallout episode. If you've been keeping up with what's going on, this is called In the Sandbox, and it's the fallout from the bull elephants, where the two men who are in the couples that are both very rich have a lot of partying that includes the sex workers and Somali and a whole bunch of other things. So it's interesting to see how it unfolds, and we see Aubrey Plaza's character find a condom wrapper on the couch of her room, and that
Gross.
really creates this, like, it's literally Chekhov's condom wrapper. We're just waiting for it to be brought to the table because she kept it. So it has not yet been brought to the table to discuss.
Never made it. That was never published.
Yeah. It's definitely the sequel that we all wanted. So yeah, I'm still really loving the show. I think the production value on this show is insane. We also get the Portia storyline where she's been with Aldi, the good guy, or apparently looking a good guy looking, appearing, presenting gentleman. But then she's interested in the British tough, who is definitely more of a bad boy, and we see more fallout of that because she ends up with this bad boy, and then Aldi, who seems the apparent good boy, ends up with Lucia, who is the sex worker that his father slept with in the first episode. So complicated is the way I would put it. But
busy,
boy,
busy,
is it pretty.
It's interesting. Like, this is, I was just kind of like, as you're talking about this, like, very in-depth show that has a high production value. This isn't specifically for HBO Max, right? This is just like an HBO television show. Right?
I'm watching it on HBO Max. I'm not sure what the actual production company is, because I know they're trying to distinguish between the two.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, it kind of was interesting. I was like, well, what's an HBO show and what's an HBO Max show? Because obviously there is still like a delineation between the two. But
Yeah, I think it says if you search for it on Google, it comes up as the official website for the HBO series. It does not say
okay.
an HBO. So I think it is considered the prestige arm, right? It's still an HBO series.
So like HBO is still technically, like, if something's for HBO, it's still better in essence than being for HBO Max. Is that kind of what they're trying to get at?
I think the idea is that there's prestige television lives under the HBO umbrella, and then HBO Max is things that are made specifically for, like, the sort of second tier market is the way I would put it. Um, it's interesting to think about it that way, because there's so much. My access point is through HBO Max.
Sure. Yeah.
Turn on HBO in a very long time,
Right. Yeah. Totally.
And I don't think I would even watch HBO for this live streaming or when it was on live, because the quality on HBO Max is 4K, and you're gonna have a lot more fluctuation, I feel like, on the cable version.
Right.
I know that when Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon was on, I would prefer to watch it on HBO Max the signal would eventually degrade if too many people were watching it.
Sure.
So it was always worth it to watch it a second time, especially for the high production values. Speaking of which, let's jump over to Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm in season 8. I made it to the big battles. We're kind of at the point where I made it through episodes 3 and 4 for season 8, and those are really powerful. We're at the point where we see the final battle at Winterfell with the Night King and that
Yeah.
entire sequence, where Jon Snow just appears completely unable to solve the problem that everybody thought he was going to solve, which was the Night King, and also he can't get to Dany. Right? Like, there's so many aspects of this where John has almost been a MacGuffin for the show in so many ways. Like, we spent so much
Mhm.
time focusing on him, and he was not the person we had to watch out for. It was Arya to take down the Night King, right? Like, spoilers for Game of Thrones from 10 years ago at this point, but or is what it feels like. I mean,
Wow.
it's so much more fun to watch this on 4K Blu-ray because the third episode of the season was so hard to watch because it was just so dark back in the day,
Mhm.
that it's nice to actually spend the time in the long night getting a chance to see everything that happened. And there's some really amazing visuals if you remember, right? Like the Dothraki having their swords lit by the Red Witch, right? And
Mhm.
then them going into battle in the darkness and all the swords going out one by one.
Mhm.
It's just great production, in my opinion. Like, again, this is like saying water's wet, but like these seasons of Game of Thrones, they had so much money to spend, but they actually are off book. So this is the sort of culmination, I think, of where Benioff and Weiss were leading us, which feels like the precursor to where things go sideways a little bit. This is a positive impact that them being off the books had, whereas the finale doesn't feel like it landed the same way.
Yeah, I mean, and also, did you feel like the lead up to the big battle with the Night King and his demise, spoiler, 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 like paid off? Like, I felt like, they took their time, like really building him up, and then I feel like they changed the episode number for season 8,
Uh-huh.
like, and they were like, "Oh crap, we can't tell as much story as we wanted to tell, or we're not ready to tell it." I don't know, but I felt like when I was watching it initially the first time,
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, that's it? Wait, all this for all this, like, ice zombie stuff for, like, for nothing? Now we're moving on from ice zombies?"
Yeah. It's an interesting way to think about it because I know that I was at the time was really surprised, but now watching it again, the pacing of it feels better now, a lot more consistent than I feel like we felt it live.
Mhm,
Um, uh, Honestly, the episode, "The Long Night," is one of the most like claustrophobic and panic-inducing episodes of Game of Thrones because it legitimately feels like a horror film,
mhm.
right? With the Walking Dead like pouring over the walls and creating a zombie bridge across the fire, right? Like, there's just so many horror aspects of the show in this one episode that we haven't had. It really, the tone of Game of Thrones never really felt like a horror movie. This episode really feels like its genre has changed,
Mhm.
and I really loved it. I think it's one of the most impressive episodes of Game of Thrones, but I also understand that, like, for people who weren't excited about the horror aspects, like my wife was surprised that this was a, even from the very beginning, it was sort of not obvious that this was a zombie based show, right? Uh,
Mhm.
in the end, it's not. It's a dragon based show, right?
Mhm.
That's sort of what the game was, but this one tale is the zombie aspect that's sort of woven throughout.
Yeah, it's the zombie expansion pack of the,
It
D&D game.
is, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to get to the next episode. I watched The Last of the Starks, which is the post battle sequence where Gendry gets named Robert's heir.
Mhm.
He's actually titled a Baratheon, which is really cool. That the episode's really a setup to getting to the final battle at King's Landing.
Right.
We get an awful lot of Euron Greyjoy swagger because he's with the Queen. So it's always good to have him appear and make me laugh because I'm like, good lord, you were just so cocky. And it's also where the Iron Fleet takes out one of Danny's dragons, right?
Oh, I don't like seeing the dragons die.
Yeah. So it's this sort of they travel to King's Landing. We're setting up the final battle. But yeah, I'm excited to get to the bells because I think that is one of those like iconic. These are all individual iconic episodes. I don't know that they. It's almost like this is the uh, if we say that the show ended at the end of season 7 with like us heading towards this, right? Like I
Mhm.
often say, like if Dexter just ended at the end of the 3rd season, I would have been much happier with the way I wanted him to end. Right? Like I think this is one of those that like if you were a hardcore reader and we got to like I don't know season 7 episode 2 or something where the book sort of ran out, it'd be okay for you to write the rest of it in your head. But
Sure, yeah.
realistically, Benioff and Weiss created some extremely iconic individual episodes here. I think the
Mm.
Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the Long Night, the Last of the Starks, the Bells, and the Iron Throne are all unbelievable individual episodes that could have been like standalone movies about the Game of Thrones ecosystem.
Yeah, I feel like that's
Um,
what that does sound more like what they were going for in this, like, in the, like, the later seasons, less episodes, just make them more cinematic,
yeah.
seems what they were doing. And who knows?
Um,
We may never get that last book, guys.
he
You
says
may
he's
be
three
right.
quarters of the way done. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
but
sure.
George can't be trusted. Let's be
I
realistic here.
know.
Let's jump over to the next one. You want to kick us off with some Andor fun and games?
Yeah, so we're in episode 11 of Andor season 1. This show continues to be maybe the best, Star Wars show we've gotten in a long time, at least for adults, as they're saying. It's the most adult, show we've gotten, and that's not because there's swearing and craziness. It's just the tone and subject matter. Um, but we have, Andor is now back on the run. He's escaped from the prison and he's trying to get back to his mother. And unfortunately, also spoilers if you didn't know, we're going to talk, spoilery about the show. But unfortunately, his mother has passed away, um, and yeah, things are happening. We're gearing up close to the end of the season. I think, right? How many
Yeah.
more episodes do we have?
I think there's only one left. I think this
Yeah.
is we're closing in. It's funny you said that you think this might be the best Star Wars show that we've gotten. I'm starting to come around to this might be the best show on television right now.
Mm,
I'm so impressed with the way this show handles um, the balancing act of being part of the Star Wars ecosystem and still having other aspects of its storytelling that are not reliant on that. It's
mhm,
great. We get to have the nostalgia berries of going to like Luthen's store and somebody on one of the podcasts I listened to was talking about the fact that like Luthen is desperately trying to keep alive these ancient cultures through his antiquity shop. And
mm,
he's also fomenting a rebellion, right? Like there's
yeah,
something really amazing about like the both sidesness of who he is as a character, right? In the last episode, we saw him give that amazing speech where he was almost framed more like a Sith than he was a Jedi, right? He was
right.
billowy black cape, and um, I'm really impressed by this show. I think the thing I didn't realize, I felt like this was a lot of setup episode. This was like table stakes for the final episode, and then I listened to a
Mhm,
bunch of podcasts and went back and rewatched it, and it's amazing how emotional this episode is, and also how much is done to make you care about B2 emo.
oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah, don't even get me started. I was so sad for him. He was
oh
like the most adorable, mourning, really sad, like mixture of like sad puppy and then
yeah,
also just like deserted lover and
yeah.
uh caring caregiver who's lost the yeah, it was like
Well, and
what
also, I think
way
this is
they
the first Star Wars that has given us something that isn't in the cartoons through a droid's eyes, right?
Mhm.
If you think back to the way the episode opens,
Yeah,
you see through a liquid, and it's because there's a glass. Somebody put a glass on top of B2, and he's vibrating to get it off, and but he's seeing through the liquid, And
Mhm.
then we cut to the outside, not his perspective. And then eventually, when Marva is taken out by the daughters of Ferrex, we notice that we're watching it from inside the house, and
Mhm.
that's B2's perspective. We're watching
Yeah, and you
him
see
watch
his
her leave.
reflection and
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and
it's
it's
powerful.
interesting.
Like,
So, um, I don't know if I missed it in previous episodes, but, like, B2 is really important to the story, it seems.
yeah,
He is
he's
holding some sort of information or
I believe, like most droids in Star Wars, he is
yeah.
definitely a secret USB drive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is what it feels like.
Um,
And we also
but
get, like, Cassian going back to the planet and getting his box that he hid in the hotel room.
mhm.
So there's a lot of, like, really nice, and in that aspect, we saw that the journal that was given to him, about the
Yeah.
manifesto about rebellion is there, and he
Mhm.
opens it, and apparently it's an audiobook, or it's like voice recordings as opposed to like
Yeah.
reading. So it's cool
Any
to hear that little
yeah,
nod towards that actor and that character.
totally. Any kind of, like, intellectual they always have some sort of voice recorder so they can hear themselves talk, you know?
Yeah.
But,
And I think
yeah,
there's
it can
just really great scenes. I mean, the actress who's playing Kaya, Elizabeth Dulé,
mhm.
she has so much work to do and not leave that store. Like, so many emotional beats revolve around her, and she's so the, like, anchor of that space.
Yeah.
But one thing that I noted is, like, when Val comes to talk to her, they're standing across the counter from one another, but they're never shot as a two shot. It's always one and then the other, and the camera never shows them at the same point at the counter. And it's interesting because Kaya is in a slightly darker space because behind the counter is darker, and Vale is in a slightly brighter place because of the display.
Mhm.
But you would have lost that if you shot it as a two shot. But
Yeah,
there's a big variance between the two characters, their perspectives, right? Like,
yeah,
I just think there's very clever use of everything in this. Not just the storytelling, but the way that they're visually telling the story. I think there's so many little nuances. Like, uh, this is the kind of show that I think absolutely would be part of, like, film schools in a couple of years. Like, when people think about, like, long form storytelling in television, and
mhm,
also, like, how to tell a story without using words. So, like, watching Vel show up at the door to the shop, and watching Kaya have to let her in. There's
mhm,
so much tension in her reaching for the button because she's like, why is she, like, she's breaking all the rules? But she can't say a word, right? Like, it's
mhm.
and then, having Vel like come at her hard, and her be like, everything you're doing right now is wrong, right? Like, you're lucky he's not here. And she's so in control, but raging right underneath her buttoned up exterior. Like,
Yeah,
she's just impressed me so much. And every time I go back to the shop, I'm excited to spend more time with her because I think she's just one of the, like, unsung heroes of the show. People talk about, like, there's no small parts, just small actors, right? Like, this is a show made up of a billion actors who are just killing it, right? Like,
yeah,
everybody understands the show they're a part of. They know the story they're trying to sell, and they're selling me, right? Like,
yeah,
I believe that she's part of the rebellion, right? Like, and we haven't spent a ton of time with her, and it's all just in sort of the ancillary storytelling.
yeah. Also, shout out to the end of the episode with, like, a super short but really exciting, intense dogfight near the end where, um, when, Mr. Sarsgaard's character gets stopped by, like, the em
Yeah.
the Empire. Um, Also specifically shouting out the fact that, like, I think this might be the first time we ever see spaceships have lightsabers. Like,
Yes.
he just, like he's getting away from the Empire, and we've got some TIE fighters coming up on him. He pushes a button, and all of a sudden, like, these 2 super I mean, they're just like lasers, but, I mean, hey, they're lightsabers if they're beams of light that cut things in Star Wars. So, like,
Yeah.
it was like lightsabers, and I was like, "Damn, that was awesome." So, I
Well, and
was like, "Oh."
also, like, Luthen, secret force user, right? Like, he gave
Mhm.
Cassian a kyber crystal, right? He can read people. He knows people's intentions, right? Like, there's something really interesting about, and also we have to shout out in that sequence, right? Like he specifically wants them to turn on the tractor beam because the missiles, the tiny missiles he's going to shoot out, will be dragged back with more force to destroy the
Yeah.
like. It's just he knows everything that's going to happen. He has
Yeah.
this innate ability to understand and to stay calm through it all.
Yeah.
And I think it's really powerful that he has a ship that has this sort of almost lightsaber esque aspects to it,
Mm.
and he was sort of framed. So there's a lot of question, right? It's been 15 years since Order 66.
Yeah.
Was he a Jedi, right? That actually
Right.
like, or was he Force sensitive, or a Jedi that has fallen and becoming darker? Is he like in the gray space between the Jedi and the Sith, right? Like,
Mhm.
did he get tainted, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he can't survive. I mean, like I don't think he can survive the season or the series. He might. I mean, he might die next episode, but like he can't survive the season. He has to die because also, if he were to live, I don't think we would have had Star Wars, like the
right.
movie. He's so badass that he would have found a way to take care of the Empire much quicker than we did in the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah. Well, and he also like is bringing Saw in, right? Like he admitted to
Mm,
Saw that he has some intelligence, and
mhm.
then we see the same mirror that we saw last week, where somebody's recognizing that like Luthen would burn them if they were that person,
Yeah.
right? So Saw is trying, like Saw doesn't trust anyone, but we now understand more how we got to Saw with like a psychic worm because he has no faith in humanity. Even
Yeah.
Luthen, who he thought like was unimpeachable, is now like burning bridges and killing off aspects of the rebellion because it's better for their chances. And I think you see so much great acting in those sequences, but like he's so big and small at the same time.
Mhm.
Like it's just unbelievable. I every time I end an episode, I go and talk about it with my wife, and she's just like, "I'm not watching this show," and I'm like, I know, it's amazing, you know.
So
I,
we got one more show to kind of wrap up, and I know this is a show that you've been really, really looking forward to, right? Because you're a big fan of the books and the prior iterations of this franchise or this storyline,
yeah,
in movies and stuff like that. So tell us what you thought of the first episode of Interview with the Vampire on AMC.
I am so impressed with the production of the show. I think the casting is fantastic. I think that it feels absolutely set in the time period we're talking about. I think Jacob Anderson, who played Grey Worm in Game of Thrones, is beautifully cast as Louis. Like he's like super confident, super. Um, he the thing that's really interesting is Louis needs to be a beautiful dandy that also can be badass enough to be the vampire he eventually becomes, and you can
Hmm.
see every aspect of that. And in this case, they've made some changes to the story where Louis is actually like a pimp who owns a whorehouse and is a little bit bigger of a man instead of like the sort of previous incarnations we've seen. So I think there's been some liberties taken in this show, but I think it's actually in line with the sentiment of what we're trying to get across.
Hmm.
It's beautiful. Eric Bogosian is here as the person who's doing the interviewing, and
Oh,
God,
wow.
just his voice and his like having an actor like seat themselves into the movie, into the show that is supposed to be like our surrogate,
Hmm.
and having it be Eric Bogosian. Like as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, "Oh my god, no way!" And like it cuts to
Wow.
an old Eric is older at this point, right? Like so
I can't
he,
imagine how old he is right now,
yeah,
right? Maybe in his
and
60s?
they apparently like they tried to do this interview back in the 70s, right? Where he had interviewed or started interviewing Louis.
Mhm,
And then Louis, he eventually like wanted to become he felt like Louis was basically offering him to become a vampire, and
mhm,
Louis took offense, and he doesn't want. How could you want this, right? Like you've missed the point of the story completely.
mhm.
But the show opens with Eric Bogosian's character Daniel getting a box mailed to him, and it's the tapes of those interviews from the 70s, and with a
Oh,
note that says, "I think it might be time for us to tell this story." And you find out that Daniel has is ill, has cancer. I think he has cancer, but like he's very ill, and
mhm.
he's also kind of a cantankerous prick, and he goes to Louis, and Louis is in I think it's in Dubai. He has like an entire floor of one of those giant buildings in Dubai,
Mhm.
and all the windows are treated so you can see sunlight drifting through. And Daniel asks him, he's like, "Well, where's your coffin?" And he's like, "You're standing in it." Right. He
Oh.
has enough money that he's able to like live in this world and doesn't have to sleep because he's got protective like, but he also doesn't have to
Wow.
sleep because he's just such a strong and powerful vampire at this point, you know?
Hmm. Is this does Anne Rice have any connection, or does her is like she involved at all in this?
I don't think she is because like
Or
she's
good
got
lord,
like one
is
writing
she still
credit, I
alive?
think.
Is she okay?
I think
Someone
so.
check on Anne Rice.
So someone check on her. Go now. I think she's definitely has an executive producer credit on the six episodes, and I
Okay.
think she's got a writing credit based on her novels, but I don't know if she has any actual writing credit. So I think her and her estate are
Oh my
involved.
god.
I think there's
Anne Rice is not with us anymore.
oh no, I
I feel
now
terrible.
I'm sad. What is going on, John?
Uh, she
How
had
did this
passed
happen?
on December 11th, 2021, it seems.
So I'm sure that her estate.
Yeah,
There's actually Christopher Rice seems to be one of the producers. So
right. Who he is,
um,
I believe he is also a playwright in his own mind, or a writer in his own mind as well, in his own
he
right.
wrote he wrote the Vampire Chronicles and the Upstairs Inferno according to IMDb.
Okay, yeah, so he's carrying on the tradition of
Yeah,
his
I think
mother.
I'm excited to keep watching this. I think it's really unbelievable how if you are familiar with the Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise versions of this, um, remember we're also what 20 years since that film, so the
Yeah.
production value and the ability to do this on television, like how they handle the vampire speaking, like especially Lestat speaking directly into your brain, like
Mhm.
the telekinetic version of that, and then the sort of stopping the world, it's all so beautifully done. um and honestly, just the actors are just they're unbelievable, like uh you know, when it comes down to it, these are supposed to be beautiful youths, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the way that Anne Rice always describes them. And I mean, I don't the actor who's playing Lestat is Sam Reed, and he just looks like he stepped out of the book.
Mhm.
When I pictured him in my head, I never pictured Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise has that like porcelain skin in the movie that makes it work, but Sam Reed has a like ferocity and empathy that
Mhm.
even Tom Cruise didn't have in the movie.
Wow.
And
Um,
Jacob Anderson is unbelievable as Louis. Like he's got and when at the end of the first episode he turns Louis finally, and Jacob Anderson he's so attractive, and then his eyes go light blue after he's turned, so
mhm.
it's so striking. Like we've seen this on Lestat the whole time, and I was like maybe it's just Sam Reed's eye color, but that is like a delineator that he's a vampire. And watching it happen to Jacob, who is this, he's all like he's horrified, he's covered in sweat and blood, and then all of a sudden as he transforms his eyes go this like beautiful crystal blue, and I'm like, wow, what an impactful way, right? Like we got the in the movie the walking around and seeing the world alive in a different way than you had as a human. And
Yeah.
I think I can't wait to see the next episode where we see the world through Louis' eyes, hopefully for the first time. um yeah, I'm very bought in. I'm very excited by this. I think
Cool.
it's a little bit long and it was a little slow but I think it's not slow. I think it's just deliberate in the storytelling,
Mhm.
because you have a lot of world to set up at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I wonder if, when we'll come across with Kirsten Dunst's character, whoever she was. What
yeah, she's coming, Claudia.
Mhm.
She's in the trailer for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very excited.
The original Interview with the Vampire movie came out in 1994, and
Wow.
Queen of the Dam came out in 2002. That was
Uh,
no.
I was very sad that they never made the Vampire Lestat, the
Mhm.
actual the movie based on the book, because I love that book, because it's also just like Lestat being Lestat, like he's a petulant child all the way to rock star, and like
I mean, Elton John did
he
make a musical about it, though. You could try and check that out if you wanted to.
really, I've never seen that. I might have to.
Might have.
All right, let's jump over, watch some films this week. Where do we start? Where do we
Well,
start?
we're
Oh,
starting off with
so
yeah, kick it off. Do it.
I'm excited. So, a film that probably turned me into an amateur cinephile back in the '90s was Reservoir Dogs.
Mm,
It's I don't know that I align still to the story and the way that story is told, but boy,
mm,
am I nostalgic for this movie. I know every line of dialogue. I know every needle drop. But just watching it again. So there's a 30th anniversary release of Reservoir Dogs, and that was overseen by Quentin. He actually is involved, as opposed to like Inglorious Bastards, which he was not involved in the 4K release, which
mm.
is why people are
Surprises
kind of
me.
down on it.
Mm,
But Reservoir Dogs is one of those films that's super iconic, and it really absolutely defined an era of a type of film, like that gritty, uh, slick talking, real talking, grounded, gruff dialogue, right? Like
mm,
it's the other side of the coin from the Kevin Smiths, right? They're similar styles, but very different from one another when it comes down to it. And I think what I loved about revisiting Reservoir Dogs today is I've now become a little bit more of a cinephile and seen more films. So the homages that Quentin puts in this film, and so many things that he was impressed by, that he wanted to expose people to the idea of, is more
mhm,
obvious to me today.
mm.
So like even in my review, I talk about the fact that like he liberally lifts some things from other cinema, right? Like there's literally the idea of having Stuck in the Middle with You playing while Mr. Blonde cuts the ear off of the cop, right? We can almost see the direct connection to Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, where we're singing in the rain and we're beating up and
Mhm,
destroying people, right? Like
mhm.
there's direct connections that you can see the cinema's impact on Quentin's life, but his love of visionary directors. Um, he loves Django, the spaghetti western, that really became the namesake for Django Unchained. And there's aspects of that gritty spaghetti western all over this film.
Mm,
And it's a 4K that I own. That is one of the most beautiful like restorations from Arrow. It's just been really fun to revisit a film like that. Its sound is never going to be as epic as like a Top Gun Maverick, because it's very much a dialogue heavy film.
sure,
But
yeah.
the dialogue is so crisp. This version of it, I think the Blu-ray version of this film was so badly created. It's almost
Oh,
like an upscale of a DVD transfer, and then the sound is actually a lossy format, so it means it's been highly compressed. So it's
mm,
it's like a 7.1 surround sound lossy track in the Blu-ray. So
mhm,
it's really crushed. The sound is not clear. There's not real directionality. And what we have here is that sort of beautiful original DTS 5.1 master track. So it's not as many channels, but it's lossless, so you get every channel represented at the same time. Like, um, just some of the scenes like in the warehouse where you can hear the whimpering of like Tim Roth while there's a conversation happening.
right.
It's just so unbelievably crisp, and you feel like you're in the room with them, which is really unbelievable.
Amazing.
So
Um,
I would suggest that if you're interested in any sort of physical media, the steelbook I got from Best Buy is gorgeous, but even any of the 4K releases that you can get your hands on is well worth it if you're a physical media
is there a
collector.
commentary track on this?
Yes, I believe there is. I think it's him and Robert Avery, his sort of partner in crime. He
Mm.
wrote a lot of the dialogue that takes place on the radio.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
yeah, and they have a school. They have a podcast now where the two of them talk about, they were like two nerds that grew up like working in movie stores. So they have like that sentimentality of like what they
Word,
watched
yeah.
and when.
Yeah,
Super
'cause
fun.
I I wonder if there's any. I wonder if they talk about because, um, like, yeah, like Quentin Tarantino. I think was like he was the door in which a lot of young dudes who like started to idolize him kind of like he was the door in which we went through to um Hong Kong cinema because like this movie is pretty much I mean, Quentin puts his own spin on it, but the story is taken from a Hong Kong film, which is pretty great too if you haven't checked that out.
Are you
Called
talking about City on Fire?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Um,
the final sequence, right? Like, if we're gonna really talk spoilers, that final shot of the three of them holding one another in a triangle with guns
right.
is directly lifted from Ringo Lam's City on Fire. Like,
Mhm.
it is almost like frame for frame
Yeah, yeah,
the same, which is unbelievable.
yeah,
And it works so well, you know.
yeah,
The
totally.
sound in that sequence is unreal. Like the starkness of those gunshots when you're watching it in this version is just it also is the perfect contrast to like Mr. White making fun of Mr. Blonde for being a psychopath, and he's just
Hmm.
like, this was you, bang, bang, bang. But then when you get to that final sequence and you hear the gunshots, it's like you took Harvey Keitel's verbalization of gunshots and they like came to life because it's you immediately get like bang 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 like all one after the other in a very similar pattern to the way that Harvey describes that sequence.
Yeah, cool. And you've been pretty busy this week. So talk to me about Armageddon Time, which you got to see in the theaters this week.
Yeah, I so Armageddon Time is written and directed by James Gray, and I listened to a ton of interviews with him leading up to this film. He's been on every podcast that I listen to, and I realized that I wish that his life and my life had crossed paths. I realized mostly that I think I'm extremely invested in James Gray as a charming, um, like cinephile and extremely intelligent person that I would love to
Mm,
be in more conversations with. So I was so excited to go see Armageddon Time. It's an autobiographical film set around his life in the 1980s, where the his surrogate in the film is Paul Graff, played by Banks Rapetta, and his parents are played by Anne Hathaway and Jeremy Strong, and his
mm.
grandfather is played by Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, but my big takeaway from this film is when he talked about it, he said that he felt like as a child you look at your parents and they're larger than life. So if he was going to cast people to play his parents, he wanted the greatest actors and larger than life actors he can get his hands on. So that's why he pushed so hard for Jeremy Strong and Anne Hathaway to be a
Mm.
part of this. I
Cool.
think they're both unbelievably well cast in this. I think they're
Nice.
fantastic. I think they the story takes place in this sort of family that is first generation Jewish in New York City in Queens, and the family is so the grand so they're he sorry, Banks playing Paul is second generation. So
Hmm.
his grandfather came here from the Ukraine.
Right.
His great grandmother came from the Ukraine, went to London, met his grandfather. They had a child. They moved here. That was the beginning of Anne Hathaway's story.
Gotcha.
There's a beautiful connection between his grandfather and Paul that
Hmm.
is much deeper than anybody else. So if you've had grandparents that you have a fondness for and that see you for who you are more than even your parents, which I think some of
Hmm.
us have had that experience. I think my brother had a real close connection with my grandfather, and
Hmm.
my sister Karen I think had a really close connection with my grandmother. There's some really interesting connections, right, that you can see,
Hmm. Yeah.
but it feels very true. Like he has like a shorthand. He calls him Jelly Bean because he always brings him jelly bean. Like there's a really lived in world here. I think
Nice.
I say all of that because I don't know that the film was truly successful. Again, success is really hard to define for a film like this. It
Hmm.
presents the world as problematic, but without any resolution. So he writes a very autobiographical tale of like
Right.
what it was like to have some privilege in New York in that time period. His best friend is a young black man named Johnny Davis, and he is living with his grandmother in Hollis, and he's basically being bussed into this public school. They become friends, and then he eventually they get in trouble together, and he ends up going off to public school that is a private school that's paid for by his grandfather. So there's a lot of like the
Yeah, from the trailer, and then once that happens, then he's like around a bunch of privileged white kids,
yes,
and then he has to it seems like from the trailer he has to kind of hide the fact that his best friend is black, and we
yes.
kind of get a lot of racial lines are being drawn. But is there because are they a Jewish family?
Yes.
So, and then are there issues with them being Jewish in the private school or no?
So in the private school, the first day he goes there, his brother has been going there, and his
Okay.
brother is really good. He feels like your very generic older brother who's mean to his younger brother. It's kind
Mm.
of perfect, and it's really fun to be honest to watch that unfold on screen.
Right.
But yeah, the first day he goes, so his brother has led him. They've gone together. Ted, played by Ryan Sell, he's been going to this school, so he's basically like, don't let him see you be weak, just keep your head down. And in the first day he walks into he's lost, can't find his way to his class, and he runs into an older gentleman in the hallway, and the guy says, what's your name? And he's like, Paul Graff. And he's like, what does that even mean? What is Graff even? Right. What, like, and he's
Mm.
trying to allude to like, where are you from?
Yeah.
And he says, he's like, oh, it's Jewish. It used to be Grafenberg or whatever it was. I think that's the line. And
Mhm.
you find out later that is actually Fred Trump being played in this film by John Deal, and it's really,
What?
yeah. So he
Wow.
ended up going to the private school that the Trumps all went to,
Oh wow.
and that's so. Then he basically says like, there's going to be an assembly. Go down here, go through that door, and it turns out that the assembly is Mary Ann Trump speaking. She's come back because she's an alumni to speak to the
Mm.
school, and it's right around the time of the Reagan election cycle. So there's
Mhm.
some like chanting for Reagan inside the auditorium. So there's
Wow.
a lot of like weirdness when he goes to the private school. And then the Marianne Trump is played by Jessica Chastain, which is a
Oh wow.
very off-putting cameo. Like
Mhm.
I can understand why she wants to play this character and probably thinks it has an important role here. But for me, I was kind of just dragged out of because we've spent so much time with these other actors that have really embodied the characters they're playing, and now we get a
Mhm.
speech from Jessica Chastain as Marianne Trump where we had no time to know her as that character, so it almost feels like Jessica Chastain showed up to speak to these kids. um
Mhm.
and so it doesn't it for me lost a little of the impact because um without having her established in the role before that, it just feels like an actor showed up as opposed to a character,
Yeah.
especially such a recognizable actor. So, yeah, I walked away from the film really impressed across the board by the type of story and the way that James Gray sets up the world and can tell a story that feels so lived in and feels a lot like my childhood.
Mm.
Because being born in Park Slope in 1974, this film is set in 1980, so I would have been 6 when this film was going on. So I would have been a
Mm.
little bit younger than the protagonist, but not by much, right? And I went to Catholic school, like, so there's a lot of corollaries here that feel pretty right to me.
Mhm.
But I think my big takeaway was he brought up some very complicated aspects of having this privilege and the world in the 1980s in New York, and he never
Mhm.
really gave us any resolution. Like,
Wow.
so it almost feels like he held up a mirror and said like, figure it out, which
Oh,
is which is fine, but like it
guess
seems
so. Yeah.
interesting to approach a film that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he's unbelievably honest. Like he was asked very pointedly, like, this is an autobiographical film, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, well, the kid Paul is kind of a jerk, and he's like, well, if you know me, and I was going to write a film about me, I should probably be a jerk because that's how people know me. So it's very charming in his approach and the way he talks about things.
Mhm.
So I was really excited to see it. I'm excited to see how people react to it. I don't know that it's going to get a ton of awards buzz, but I do think Anne Hathaway is Esther, his mother, and Jeremy Strong. Jeremy Strong has one of the most amazingly powerful small scenes I've seen in a very long time. Um, the film revolves around the fact that he feels like he is not the sort of anchor of his family as much as his father-in-law.
Hmm.
And also his father, he loves his father-in-law. So there's this push and pull of like, I want to be the person that my family relies on, but he is better than me. And you can feel his interior pain. And I think that's unbelievable. It's why you cast a Jeremy Strong, right? Like, even to play this, sort of smaller character in the film like this.
The tagline is "the end of an era, the beginning of everything." Is that? And I mean, and the movie's called Armageddon Time. Like, how would you? Do they talk? Do they discuss like why it's called that exactly,
No,
or
not
you
really. I
feel like
think,
it's the
yeah,
end
to
of
go to
his?
full spoiler mode, I'll go into that. And I think when it comes right down to it, right, like, again, if you're going to see this film and you don't want it to be spoiled, I would skip forward about a minute or two. In this film, in the year that we follow this character, he basically loses access to his best friend because he's moved from public school to private school. His
Hmm.
grandfather gets extremely ill, has bone cancer, and dies.
Hmm.
Um, they then steal some stuff and they get caught by the cops. And he's let go free by the cop because his
Because
father is
he's
a
white.
boiler repairman and
Oh.
he did a solid to the cop. But yes, because he's white. And
Hmm.
his friend is left to hold the bag and he
Hmm.
doesn't do anything to help him. So Armageddon Time is kind of a combination of like destroying his sense of innocence and also blowing up his world all at one time is what I feel like he
Yeah.
was trying to get at.
Gotcha.
Um, I can't walk away from this film without saying Anthony Hopkins is great, but he feels extremely miscast as an
Hmm.
old Jewish grandfather.
Sure.
Um, he absolutely is Anthony Hopkins in this film. Every word he says has weight. Every scene you believe his love for his grandson, right? Like, but I feel like there are so many actors that, given the fact that you had a Jeremy Strong and a Anne Hathaway, I would have loved to see somebody who felt a little bit more traditional to fill that grandfather role
Hmm.
than a person who is fighting through a British accent
Right.
to
Yeah.
play a New York grandfather.
Totally.
I It's hard to say that because he's really good in it, but I also feel like, God, there's so many amazing New York City character actors that would have killed to play. Like, I can
Yeah.
only imagine like the casting call if you had opened it up and said like, if you think you can be a Jewish grandfather in New York City in the 1980s, just what that cattle call would have looked like and how many amazing actors would have showed up.
Yeah. I could imagine.
It's also fun to see like John Deal play Fred Trump. Like, he has a gruffness and a believability that's why I think that Jessica Chastain is so also like starkly in relief to him, because
Hmm.
you meet him very quickly in the hallway and Paul introduces himself and you're like, I believe that he could be Fred Trump. And then you cut to
Hmm.
Jessica Chastain and she's like introduced as Marianne Trump and you're like, this just feels like we didn't get any setup for who she is. So it's like, open the curtain, we have new actor arrive, give a speech, and then we never see her again.
Hmm.
So I think it's the storytelling hurt that character in my opinion. Whereas like
Hmm.
Anthony Hopkins, we live with for a long time. So once you get over the initial sort of Anthony Hopkins of it all, I think you can
Right.
settle into like how much love he has for his, and you can eventually see past the actor. It's the problem of like casting actors to play like a Hugh Jackman to play something small, right? Like, or think it's so hard to like put out of your head that is that actor.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think it's to the detriment of a more successful actors. They have to work harder for you to see the character.
Hmm.
And I don't think this film set up Jessica Chastain very well to be able to embody that character. I think one
Gotcha.
scene where you got to meet her ahead of time would have been better.
Hmm.
Yeah, I liked it. It's one of those films that I walked away like, I wish I had understood going in that this is where we were starting from, because I think I had a different picture in my head of what type of film it would be,
Hmm.
especially from the trailers and from listening to him talk about it. but it does very much feel like I'm gonna hold up a mirror, show you a bunch of things that are messed up and complicated, and then you're gonna deal with that when you leave the theater, without any
Yeah.
resolution.
I mean, 'tis the season for that. We're gonna. I'm sure. I feel like a lot of the movies that we're getting near this time of the year are very hard. Like a lot of them are mirror movies, as you say, kind of,
Yeah.
and also tough, tough subject matter.
I mean, like
But
the
on
next
the other
film. Let's
side,
be real.
yeah,
This next film is the epitome of that. So why don't you take us a
nah.
little bit down some rabbit holes, John, into this beautiful Christmas season film?
All right, listen, Ebenezer Scrooge. Like first and foremost, I need to say anyone who's listening, I didn't put this movie on this list. I watched this movie and I thought, well, I don't need to bring it up on the podcast, but all of a sudden I open up my computer and check the show notes, and all of a sudden Falling for Christmas, that's on Netflix, is on here. Surprise, surprise, by Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, Robbie Holmes over here. Um, so yeah, if you want to watch a kind of a clone of Overboard, which was a Goldie
Mhm.
Hawn movie back in the day, set in Christmas, starring Lindsay Lohan, and I guess they're saying this is kind of Lindsay Lohan's return to acting.
Yep.
You can check it out on Netflix. Um, I mean, I'm apparently the Christmas guy, and I watched this, and I didn't want to talk about it, but you put it on here, so why don't you take it away, my friend?
Yeah, it was super funny. My wife and I were looking for something to watch, and I was like, "Do you want to watch this?" Because it's Lindsay Lohan's new film, and she was like, "You want to watch that?" And I was like, "Yeah," because like in my head, I was like, "Screw John, I'm taking over the title of Christmas guy." But at the end of the film, and she was like, "What'd you think?" And I was like, "I now have another Christmas film to talk about." Screw you, John. So it was really fun to watch. I think overall, I would say it's not a great film, but it does a lot of really fun things. I think it gives us back Lindsay Lohan's physical comedic nature. I think that's something she's always had the ability to do that I don't think she gets enough credit for. She's physically capable of pulling things off
Well, her
that
stunt team is.
yeah, but also like it just looks it we get back to sort of the fun aspects of what made Lindsay Lohan's like 20s, late teens and early 20s so fun. And
Mhm.
she sort of understands I think they were very smart at the end of the film. They when they ran the credits, they ran the bloopers, and it made the film look like they had a blast, and it's a really nice way to like soften Lindsay's image to coming back. I think it absolutely served up us why we should be excited that Lindsay Lohan is back as an actress.
Mhm.
And I think she did a great job. I think it was fun. I don't think it's a great film. I think she's definitely the standout in the film. She's believable. She has the ability to be both innocent and kind of a jerk, and to feel physical in the role, even when it's maybe not her. Um, yeah, it's silly fun, but it was fun to see somebody that I feel like was an actor that I expected to be bigger in my life coming back to film.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just like the Grinch, his heart grew 3 times bigger.
Don't worry, we can talk some smack. Boy, toured Overstreet. That guy is handsome, but what's going on here? He the casting is super fun because he really does look like a grown-up version of like a Labrador Retriever in human form. He's got these like beautiful eyes and scruffy face, and uh, but the casting against him is even better. George Young, who plays Tad Fairchild, is his ability to be a wackadoodle like influencer guy is unrivaled. He's
Yeah.
fantastic in his level of like awkwardness and like just so pretentiousy assholey. Like he's really good in this film.
Yeah, so, like, the, what Robbie's talking about is, like, Chord Overstreet. He's, like, the owner of, like, a young ski lodge, like, a small ski lodge, and Lindsay Lohan is, like, an heiress, and I believe her father is maybe a hotel tycoon, and actually,
Yeah,
he's trying to get in
Beauregard
with her
Belmont.
father.
I mean, the names
Yeah.
are pretty amazing.
Yeah, so he's trying to get in with Lindsay Lohan's father to kind of buy, I guess, his lodge, I think. And the other guy
Come on,
that
give the script
Robert was
its
talking about.
due. I mean, it. You know, he goes to meet with
Hey man,
Beauregard. Uh,
I'm just trying to this welcome to my world trying to defend Christmas movies on my end. So I'm just giving it right
Well,
back at
you
you, my
know,
friend.
Jack Russell goes to meet with Beauregard to try to get him to invest in his little snow winter wonderland, so that way it can
Mhm,
be a feeder to this more expensive snow resort. You know,
mhm,
um, yeah, I think the story's silly, but it's really fun. I think it's a really nice introduction to the young girl who Lindsay Lohan basically like gets is sort of the connective tissue because our friend Jake has a daughter and his wife has passed away. So we were introduced to Avi is the name on IMDb, but it's Olivia Perez, and she's adorable. She's everything you want from a kid in a film like this, right? Like she's not actually cloyingly sweet to the point where you want to punch her in the face. She's reserved enough and just enthusiastic enough and believable enough that like I never once got to the point where I rolled my eyes at her, which is pretty impressive for a film like this.
mhm. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's silly fun. Welcome back, Lindsay.
Going from one Christmas movie to another, we can hop right into our main reviews. We're going to do a double review in our main reviews. And the first one we're going to talk about is the new Christmas movie that came out on Apple Plus, and I think it's in theaters as well. Spirited, starring Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, in a new musical Christmas story. What was your initial thought? What were your initial take on this as we expand on it?
Yeah, I feel like this film is too long. That's my first take. I feel like the sequences they've overcomplicated the story to the point where you have to do an awful lot of contortion and backflips and table setting in order to get to the finale. I think there's
Mhm.
a much more streamlined version of this movie that would be more enjoyable. I
Sure.
think it's too long. I- it's definitely going to be it's a cult of personality. If you are a person who enjoys Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, you get them in spades, right? And you get what makes both of them what is their public persona really is on display here, right? The Will Ferrell fish out of water, the Ryan Reynolds ultra cocky, confident, charming, smarmy, right? They're both really it's a great showcase for the two of their public personas. I don't even know if it's I would say their acting abilities, but it's the cultivated personalities they've put out to making films.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, I'm like, this is like, I knew Will Ferrell could sing. Like, if you've seen Fire Song on Netflix, the man can sing and it's really impressive. And I think this is, if anything, I think this is a smart kind of like next movie for him to do where it's like, yeah, I can sing and I can dance. Because I was very, really, really impressed with Will Ferrell's like, um, being able to adapt to like musical comedy and musical theater, because in essence also I think the way that this was directed and staged, it's pretty much like they're putting on a musical and then they just happen to kind of film it. um and it's interesting. Yeah, I do agree. I felt like the runtime was too long, but it only comes in at 2 hours and 7 minutes. And if you think about if this was on stage with an intermission, I think it would have flown by because you would have had that like weird. Yeah, I guess it's a weird energy exchange. That's how I kind of talk about live theater. Like if this was a live show,
Yeah.
I think it would have been, and like having to kind of like you know, do set changes and big set moves and everything. If you were there to experience this, I think it would have been a little more enjoyable. But as a movie, I think like the beginning is like super exciting and super strong, and then it kind of like fizzles in the middle, and you kind of lose interest.
Yeah.
And I think it loses its way, and then like where it comes out on the end was enjoyable, but to me didn't match the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I think that opening sequence where Clint Briggs is introduced and is the first real Ryan Reynolds sequence, which that's a musical piece,
Mhm.
is fantastic. Right, the speech he gives. about Christmas trees, right? About real Christmas. That whole pitch of him as the guy who's going to change the marketing around this National Association of Live Trees or whatever it is.
Mhm.
That is it would have been well in place on a stage on Broadway. Like I think
Yeah.
there are some real amazing sequences in this film, but I think it lacks the cohesion in the middle of the movie. I think you're right that you like sort of fall off a cliff when they're trying to like inject so much story to it, right? Like
Yeah.
the simple piece of like Will Ferrell is the ghost of Christmas Present, and they just helped turn someone around. So you get this big musical act at the beginning, and then we're
Yeah. Which
introduced
is great.
to
I was,
the
like, blown
next
away by that.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Then we're introduced to like they have to figure out who they're going to spend their time on for the next year to try to haunt to get them because it's all about like the amount of turning one person can add ripples of good into the world.
Yeah. This is
So
kind of like, it's kind of almost a sequel in a way to Christmas Carol, the whole
yeah,
Ebenezer Scrooge, um, kind of, story, with you have the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas past, and the ghost of Christmas future. All I think that are played really in fun ways in this.
yep,
And Will Ferrell is the ghost of Christmas present, and
yep.
this is he wants to retire because he's been doing it for quite a long time, and he chooses Ryan Reynolds as like his whale that he'll like in a sense that like he's like someone really hard to change,
Yep.
and he sees kind of himself in his character, and they go for it, and there's successes and failures along the way, and musical goodness at points.
Yeah.
um I was like, like it's interesting because so the music in this is done by Pasek and Paul, who are they're a musical duo who got a lot of traction when they did the music for La La Land, and then they did The Greatest Showman, and on Broadway they did Dear Evan Hansen, and they've also done a musical version of A Christmas Story. Um, so like it's kind of funny that this is their second Christmas musical.
Yep.
But they do like really catchy, chorusy music. But I didn't find that like a lot of the music in this was memorable. I think there's like a melody that I could maybe hum right now, but like I don't really remember most of the music.
Yep. Yeah, I think honestly, the big scenes feel the big musical numbers feel unbelievably polished, but
Mm,
there's like that lack of cohesion. Like it doesn't feel like there's a score that brings it across. Right, like it feels like individual scenes snap together around a script that is trying to tell a bigger story, as opposed
mm,
to it feeling like one unified musical to me.
yeah.
Because there's a lot of like one-off set scenes and set pieces that
Mm,
like the sequence where we're introduced to Ryan Reynolds' character at first. It's a well choreographed, well staged sequence, and then you jump off to we're gonna move to the next area. I feel like the best musicals find a way to make that connective tissue feel natural, and this has a
mhm,
lot of connective tissue that feels like it is filling in the backstory as opposed to part of the natural storytelling. It's almost like we end up in cul-de-sacs of like explanation and
mm,
and you know uh it, really giving you a download of a lot of deep information that you're not getting in the songs.
mm. Yeah.
Um, I,
Um,
I don't think it's a great film. I think it was fun. I'm really excited that like Octavia Spencer was in this. I think she was really fun and a nice surprise. She's a blast. Just getting her to
yeah,
be in a film like this adds a lot of weight to it. But also
I think it's
the Patrick Page, who's playing Marley, is fantastic.
well that therein lie like I was going to talk about like Patrick Page is like the theater royalty that they bring to this movie. I mean, he originated like the Green Goblin part in the Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark musical. He was the Grinch in the Grinch, the How the Grinch Stole Christmas musical. He was Scar in the Lion King, and most recently he was Hades in Hades Town.
Wow.
He is like the Broadway heavyweight in this, and he's like, and like he's really awesome in this. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
agree. Um,
Every scene he's in is like punched. Like he
yeah.
brings a weight and gravity, especially because he's playing against Will Farrell so often, and Will is trying to
Mhm.
play like sort of the light, like fun. Having him play the character of Marley is even funnier. Like he just is like the heavy all, like he's just coming in and like it's roundhouse after roundhouse between the things he's saying, the weight he brings to the character, right? Like
Mhm.
his delivery is very pointed and really against a Will Farrell, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Like they mesh really well together on stage.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, and I thought that the introduction, like Patrick Page has a song where he's like trying to, he's doing his Jacob Marley thing where like, he like you'll be haunted by three ghosts, and he's got like the chains, and he's got like more of a ghost look on his face, and I thought that musical number was really fun.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and something I think that it's weird, and I feel like people now who want to make musicals, but also are afraid that people who don't like musicals won't watch it. Like, there's this thing that goes in them where they comment on them being musicals, and I'm a little tired of like, oh my god, why were we singing together? Oh my god, how did you know all the dance steps? And like they do that in this at points, and like I think they make that joke and they try to be earnest about it. But I'm like, dude, everyone makes that joke. Like that's what musicals are. Like just deal with it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think one thing that's funny about that is we should tell everybody like this has been done most effectively and shouldn't be done again for a while because of Schmigadoon, right? Having
Mhm.
characters who see the world become a musical around them that they're like, well, why is this happening? Like that is
Mhm.
the most effective version of that I've seen in a very long time. And I'm like, but we also had amazing actors doing it. You had like Michael
Right. Yeah.
Keegan, right? Like Keegan Michael Key, like literally the guy who hates musicals, just being like, no, I'm not saying I'm not getting involved in your crap, right? Like I
Mhm.
think we should all take a step back and be like, let Schmigadoon own that swim lane for a little while. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really landed that joke perfectly and over and over again. Like you never once see until he finally sings for the first time in like episode 7, like Keegan Michael Key is 100% of the time like, nah, man, this is stupid. Musicals suck.
Mhm.
Like it's so unbelievably and like subtly done throughout the entire show that yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see that be the case.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, like I was really impressed with Will Ferrell, and I was really impressed with Ryan Reynolds. Like Ryan Reynolds has gone on by saying, like he's never done a musical before. He had to take voice lessons for this, and yes, like I think he sounds really great. You can definitely tell, like when he has to sustain those high notes, that they've been kind of sweetened in the studio, but that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, but all in all, like I think, yeah, it's like I think, like I'm sure they had high hopes for this in the sense it's like, well, the like Will Ferrell has already done Elf. He's
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park. But the fact that keeps returning to Christmas movies is like, cool. I'm down with
Yeah.
that. I love Christmas movies too. So if I had to compare them, this is not Elf. It's better than Elf the musical. I will say that though. And yeah, and Ryan Reynolds, like, good for
the
you,
one
bro. Like,
the one thing I'll say is I was hopeful for a little bit more nostalgia. Like
mhm.
they referenced Scrooged, and there were a couple of parts where I think I felt like they could have if they could have brought people like they mentioned the that film with Bobcat Goldthwait. Like, wouldn't have been great if we could have had like a cameo if Bobcat could have showed up for
Mhm.
like one throwaway like in the background or like what's his name who was the cab driver when the cab pulled up. I was like
Mhm.
pretty please, like we're so close,
Right.
you're trying to tread on nostalgia berries but you didn't bring any you're trying to tread on nostalgia but you didn't bring any berries along is what it felt like to me. I'm like, you're referencing this stuff, like give us a little, like
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's sort of a logical successor to Scrooge in a lot of ways, right? Like
Mm.
it's an interesting double feature. I think Scrooge is a better film. I also have more affection for that. Like it hit at the right time for me.
Sure.
One last thing I want to just shout out is there's some really good like other characters being brought to the table. Like Tracy Morgan is the voice of Ghost of Future, Ghost of
Present.
Future.
Future.
Yeah, is really
Yeah.
fun. Of Yet to Come, they call him.
Mhm.
But then also Sunita Mani is in this as the ghost of Christmas Past, and
Yeah, she's awesome.
she's fantastic. And like I didn't love her incarnation of Doctor Who with Peter Capaldi, but like no with our current friend, but like she's so great in everything she does. Like just seeing
Mhm.
her get a chance to be sort of on the main stage along with the leads and have so many important scenes. Like I want more of her anyway. So
Yeah, she
it
was
was
great
just
in
nice to
Glow.
see her show
That's
up.
what
You
I
know,
that's where I remember her most from.
from what?
Um, Glow.
Yes, she was
That's where
fantastic
I
in Glow.
mostly
Yeah.
remember her from.
Yeah, let's jump over to our final film. John, do you want to do a quick high level synopsis and then we'll go from there?
Sure, yeah. So this we're having a very a double feature of Will Ferrell produced shows. This was also produced by he produced Spirited, and he also produced The Menu, which we're going to talk about now. Um, the short kind of synopsis of this is you have a young couple, let's say, um, go or pay a lot of money to go to an island with and you have an assortment of other folks. You have high end food reviewer. You've got um, a successful movie star. You've got like corporate elite, like young bucks and everything in between, and they all are invited to go to an island where Ralph Fiennes is the head chef, and then craziness ensues, and that's kind of where the night goes. Um, what was your initial? I mean, I think we were both looking forward to this movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. I was really intrigued from the very beginning. I think the
Mhm.
movie is full of actors that I have a huge amount of affection for. Like, I'm a sucker for anything you're going to put Anya Taylor Joy in anyway. But seeing
Mhm.
her play the sort of foil to Nicholas Holt, because they're the couple that's together, but seeing the scenes between the two of them is so much fun. Even in the trailer, I was blown away by the trailer. Really did a great job of bringing you along without spoiling this film.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the trailer is even a little bit darker than the film is, but in the end, I would say it should totally be categorized as like a dark comedy,
Yeah.
more than a horror film. But the
Oh
trailer is
yeah.
a little more on the horror tip, in my opinion. It makes you uncomfortable, right? I think that's
Yeah.
this film
Sure.
is really good at making you feel uncomfortable. But I think the trailer, as a person who sometimes feels like horror is not his bag, I saw this trailer and I was like, well, I'm on board because of the actors that are so prominently featured in the trailer, but also I
Mhm.
love the idea of like upper crust food experiences like and this film I think this film and Triangle of Sadness are like two films that both are taking down and taking sort of and targeting specific aspects of society today in a really interesting way. These would make a hell of a double feature in my opinion.
Mhm.
um it's so it's full of actors that are of today and also actors that are nice nostalgia berries for us. Like Judith Light is in this film, and it was really nice to see her show up. And the husband of Judith Light is played by Reed Birney, who you've seen in a billion films. There's a lot of amazing actors just right on the that in the trailer you're like, I recognize that person. Like that's the thing that's really fun here is you realize just how many people in this cast within the first like 10 minutes of everybody arriving at the island. You see everyone in the room together for the first time and you're like, oh my god, there's just so much talent. John Leguizamo and Hong Chow, who plays Elisa, his the right hand of the chef. Like there's just so many good actors,
Mhm.
like I
Yeah.
felt so warm and fuzzy just going like, this can't be bad, right? Like
Mhm.
if all these actors believe this movie could work, like, boy, I can't wait to see what they create.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the trailer definitely condensed pretty much like all of the scary aspects of the film into like I think you pretty much give or take a few others, you see most of what you're going to get in store as far as like quote unquote horror goes. But yeah, I think for me, Ray Fiennes owns this movie.
Fuck yeah.
Him as the head chef and kind of the main driving force as since he's hosting the dinner. I mean, it's mostly to me. It was his story. I was blown away by I like like this is one of my favorite performances of his that I've seen in a while, and I think that yeah, I think that there's a lot of levels to it, and I think that it's really complex. Yeah, and like if we have to talk about like awards and stuff, like yeah, I think that he should be nominated for this movie. I think he does such a great job.
Yeah.
Um, it's like I feel like he holds the room. He like holds everybody hostage. Um, and yeah, it's great. And um, yeah, I mean, I want to start talking about I mean, I know that you enjoy cooking and you enjoy food, so I
Oh
want
yeah.
to want to kind of transition really quickly and talk about the food aspect of the movie.
Yeah,
Like,
I
what did
think
you think of that?
what's amazing is, right, like the setup is that these people are going to have a sort of guided chef's experience on an island, and it's $1,250 a plate. $1,250 a plate. So really high end experience. You take a ferry over to the island. You get the tour of the island. So every aspect of the food is produced on the island, from the vegetables to the proteins. Everything is there, and then you're brought through a tour that's led by Elsa. And what's great is the little pieces of this that you don't realize are important the first time you watch it. The elder couple that I mentioned, Judith Light and what was his name? Reed Burney, Richard and Anne, have been there before, and you know this because they say like, we don't need to go on the tour. Can we go straight to the restaurant? We've
Yeah.
seen it before. So you get little pieces that really set up things in the future that are so important. But what I love about it is you get this like tour of the island. So you get a physical sense of what the island feels like and where things are, which is important to setting up the future of the film.
Hmm.
And none of it feels like it's done without purpose, but it also doesn't feel like you're taking your vitamins, right? You're getting this
Hmm.
like sumptuous land. You're getting a chance to see the like where the crabs come from. You're getting, like all of it is it's shot with so much love and care, and every frame almost looks like it could be a meal in and of itself. Like this is a
Hmm.
film that I think the production design and the cinematography really, for such interior, so much of the film taking place in the restaurant, the cinematography and the framing devices that are used, um, are unbelievable. And also, it's like a multi-course. So it's called the menu because it is a single experience that has been cultivated by everything that can be done with it, with the items that are curated on the island by the chef. Right? It's like the perfect food experience from his perspective.
Yeah, and
And
also tailored for the people who were there as well.
yes. So that becomes a fun aspect of it when you realize that Margot, Anya Taylor Joy's character, was not originally the person who was scheduled to be there.
Hmm.
Tyler, played by Nicholas Holt, was dating someone else, and they broke up, and Margot became his date for this. So there's a unique difference in the room than what the chef expected to start with.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the framing device of it being a high end restaurant that is like an open kitchen environment, right? Like it's what we've all been groomed on, like food TV, on Food
Hmm.
Network, to show you what a high end restaurant can feel like. It's
Yep.
done perfectly. None of it
Yeah.
feels out of place. None of it feels fake. 100% of that room feels like it's in use at all
Yeah.
times. The kitchen area is so beautifully laid out. You
Yeah.
believe that like 15 chefs could be in that space and not collide. That's also there's a precision. Like that was one of the words I used when I saw the trailer, and I said to my wife, I was like, she was like, well, what are you expecting from this film? And I was like, not a coldness, but a precision. I expect the way the trailer is cut and edited, there's a precision to the way it's being told, the story is
Hmm.
being told. And you feel that right away, right? The way the
Yeah.
chef draws everybody together by clapping, right? And everybody falls in line. It feels like almost a military. There's a
Yeah.
precision to everything that's done in that room.
Yeah.
and it's just beautiful. I don't know that I've seen a film that I evoked more that like the experience of precise food curation.
Yeah, and also when I thought it was really interesting because, like, they get they get served each course, and like while the course is being, and they make sure to like describe the course and what it's meant to do and all this other things, and then you get this like really high production value close up macros, of the food itself, and then in really beautiful font you get what was it like, what he called it, and the ingredients and all that stuff. And I think like that it's like and it's interesting how that kind of evolves as the movie progresses. And I think I when you first watch it, you're like, oh wow, that's beautiful, and then like you kind of realize that it's also commentary on like these food shows,
Yep.
and like like how much weight we put on these kinds of things. And I really enjoyed kind of like the movie kind of brings the worst of society into a room and then just like cuts them all down
Yep.
in more ways than one.
But it
And
doesn't it's also precise in its takedowns, right? Like
sure,
it doesn't take down
yeah,
just one aspect of society. Like the example I would give is like Tyler, Nicholas Holt's character, is like an extreme foodie who loves food and loves and is like basically worships at the altar of Chef Slovik.
mhm,
So when he gets there, he knows every aspect and every piece of every component of every tool of, and we see that the chef is frustrated by that level of precision knowledge, right? Because what he's trying to do is create this experience, and you are breaking
mhm,
it down to its component parts.
mhm.
There's no discovery, right? There's no magic when you basically understand what it takes to make the sausage.
Yeah, like I think I like Nicholas Holt. I loved Nicholas Holt in this because I fucking hated. Sorry, we're gonna have to put an explicit on this
Oh
podcast because I
yeah.
just swore, but I fucking hated his character. And like kudos to Nicholas Holt and kudos to the writing. I was just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, because what, like, yeah, like what Robbie was saying, like he is an acolyte of this. He's an acolyte, but he doesn't know anything about cooking at the
Yes.
same time. Like he knows how to do everything, but he never applies it.
Yep. It's like
Um,
idolatry without knowledge, right?
yeah, and the insane thing that kind of like I'm sure gets people angry just like I am is like he also doesn't care about what's happening around him. There are insane things that start to happen throughout the movie, and all he cares about is the food and like getting to know Chef,
Yeah.
and it's infuriating and hilarious at the same time.
Yes.
Um, and then the way that they address that character was like I was so satisfied. And that's maybe a really creepy thing to say when you see the movie, but like when he kind of gets his comeuppance and kind of learns a lesson. um I don't know if I needed the extreme outcome that went to, but the process of him learning, oh my gosh, and having a realization
Yeah.
was one of the best scenes in the movie.
I think the thing that you're alluding to, which I think is what the movie is really trying to show, is everyone in the film is not a good person who's eating dinner there
Mm.
for a reason. Something about them
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
is, but it's like it's skewering every aspect of like high society and all of its ills and what it leads to, right? Like John Leguizamo's character is an actor who is kind of a bolstery liar who thinks he's more important than he is.
Yeah, and
And
he's like in the twilight of his career.
yep,
um and you find sorry to jump in,
yeah,
but just to get this out of the way, like I think something that's really important in this movie is you got it. I mean, I'm sure like this is a movie that I'm sure you will get the steelbook of simply for the audio,
yeah,
because you hear information that you don't see on screen that's very important. There's a point in the beginning of the movie when John Leguizamo was kind of talking, and he kind of he says he's in his presentation, or he's in his presenter phase of his career, and
Yeah.
that in essence is like, I no one wants to hire me to make a movie, but I get, I get hired to like do like the dog shows, or like the, like low tier award ceremonies. So like it's
Yep.
interesting that that's kind of where he's at in his career.
Yeah, I think this is a film that I am very much looking forward to owning because I feel like I will. I'm hopeful that that the 4K release of it is as beautiful as what I saw. My wife and I went and saw this, and I think this is the one we saw at Cinemark. But the movie is gorgeous. It's crisp. Its sound is so important to you hear the entire kitchen working, and it's basically a lot of times you're not focused on the kitchen, but you can hear all the work being done.
Mm,
And if you've ever worked in restaurants, that sound is very familiar. The hubbub and white noise of a kitchen is very familiar to me, and it's something I actually really enjoy.
mhm,
I love restaurants, and I love that world. If I wasn't a technologist, I would have been in food service. And there's something very beautiful about how it's captured here, very
mhm,
lovingly. The world of restaurants, but
mm,
uh, it then, because it's so accurately or so lovingly captures it, when you see where the movie ends up going and how every one of the chefs and sous chefs that work in the kitchen are basically like miserable, but they do
mhm,
their job perfectly. It also captures that sort of high end food world that I think we don't acknowledge enough. Like the bear really tries to reckon with that, in my opinion, in
mm.
a real honest, like open way. This is like
That
sort
the
of
the show on Hulu is what Robbie's
yeah,
talking
the
about.
FX show, The Bear. It was it really surprisingly skewers and takes down the food world without you
Mm,
realizing that's what it's actually trying to do, or it does it without it being the main point of the show.
yeah,
Whereas in this case, I think where everything's getting skewed. No one is safe from this script. This script is
mhm,
biting and beautiful and absolutely poignant in its depictions of all the ills of society in one room.
yeah,
And it's fantastic. I think as far as
yeah.
parody goes, I haven't seen a film like this in a very long time.
Yeah, and, touching upon kind of like the soundscape you were mentioning with like the kitchen and all the sounds you're hearing. I was listening to NPR, and they interviewed Mark Malode, I believe is how you say it, the director's last name,
Hmm.
and he did something really, really, really interesting. So like that set was a full set, and every single person on that set was mic'd personally, and they just kind of like, the guests improved, and then obviously there were like parts of dialogue that were to be filmed, but he just had everyone just like improv and like just like be present, and then the camera just like snuck in on people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because when you're watching like the main characters that they have in focus, watching the people in the back, they're very much alive, and I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool, and I think it's really cool that he did that. And also kudos to all those actors that they hire to be the line chefs and the sous chefs and all that other stuff, because they brought in like a like the only I think it's a I don't remember her name, but she's like the only Michelin, like high Michelin star chef like in America or whatever, and she came in and she like put all those extras and actors through like a boot camp, so they
Oh
look
wow.
like, like they know what they're doing. So I thought that was really cool, and it just goes to show like the authenticity of the film, and like when you and again like the I to me it's interesting because like the food they're making to me is like a little bit pretentious, and I'm like, that's not my cup of tea. Like I'm not into like the like two bites flavorscape in my mouth kind of thing. Um, but I think that it looks beautiful, and
Yeah.
I think that the commentary on that and kind of some of the other things that are I don't know why I'm not trying to spoil this movie, but I feel like sometimes, I guess, when we watch movies and we're like, we really like them, I feel like wasn't there another
I
movie that
want
we
people
tried
to
not to
experience
spoil?
this, like, if they can, you
Yeah,
know, that I think I'm with you. I'm hesitant because I don't want to give everything away because
yeah,
it's got some really beautiful reveals that happen,
yeah,
and it's a perfect house of cards. If you start to like pull away cards, it's going to collapse,
yeah.
and then we're going to be down the rabbit hole of giving everything away. I think I also was trying to figure out like what else we could talk about. I think there's some really great little pieces of this that are handled by expert actors that really bring in like that like scalpel like precision to the film. Peter
Mhm.
Grosz plays the sommelier who is
Oh my
constantly filling
gosh,
glasses, and
he's so
boy,
great at it.
like what he brings to the table, like his energy and his like unbelievable, like unflappable, knowledgeable, calm presence at the side of the
Mhm,
table. He's constantly around the room. That's the other thing is right what John was talking about, where it feels like people are. He's constantly filling glasses in the room for people because there's like what 12 tables. So every one of them, like he's always in motion. But when you get to the moments where he's describing a bottle, like I want to, you were talking about feeling like the food is. I want to eat at this restaurant, right? Like I don't want to experience the final outcome, but boy, I want that experience. I
mhm,
want someone to come over and tell me about this perfectly paired wine and these two
mhm,
bites of beef. Like I want that,
mhm,
Um, I've gotten a chance to eat at a couple of nice restaurants, but I've never had that sort of like chef's experience at this high end type of place. And
mhm.
I walked away like, God, I'm glad I didn't go visit that restaurant, but I want that experience.
Right, yeah. Um, yeah, it's a really great movie, and I hope that a lot of people see it.
Yeah,
Um,
so I was trying
it's
to
been a
figure out
while.
where I saw it, and I want to go on a 30-second rant about how Regal sucks.
Yes, sure,
So
yeah,
what's amazing is when I went to buy the tickets, I went to the early screening of it. So on Wednesday night, John pointed me towards the fact that our friends at the menu were partnering with Regal to do an early showing. So
mhm,
they're one of the Regals in Northern Virginia was doing a single showing of this on that Wednesday night. So I was excited. I was going to get a chance to see the movie in an early access phase. It's also a theater that has couches instead of chairs. So I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. And then I got there, and my wife was just like, well, it's I know what mall it's in, and you should probably just temper your expectations. And I was like, no, let's just go in positive. Everything's going to be great. And then we got there. Uh, Regal needs to turn off the lights during their trailers.
mhm,
Period. End of story. Because you cannot see the trailers in their theaters. It also really doesn't help them sell more tickets if you can't see the. I there were 7 trailers before this movie, and
mhm,
they looked atrocious, absolutely terrible. Avatar: The Way of Water was unwatchable in this format. It is the
oof,
brightest, most amazing use of color and light in a trailer in a very long time. And it
mhm,
looks like it was made in the 70s under a bucket. I don't know what they're doing, why they feel like it's a good idea to keep the lights on, but like it just is a terrible experience for cinema. If what you're trying to
mhm.
do by playing trailers is get people excited about movies, boy, you are not doing it. It's
Yeah,
awful.
yeah, you
And
gotta
because
treat
of
them
the
like movies.
yeah, well, they also because of the lights being up, you can absolutely see the screen through the projected material. So you're losing detail, but you're also just like you're losing any immersion and
Mm,
experience that there's no bringing you into the film or the trailers. You're basically telling everybody in the audience that they should talk through this, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and they also
You're not
didn't
putting any
curate
importance on the
any
screen, yeah.
they didn't curate any trailers. The trailers were the same 7 trailers I've seen 1,000 times. This is a specific kind of movie, right? Like it's an early access showing. Why wasn't there like specific trailer or something
Mm,
from the actors or the director or saying
yeah,
like thank you for like there's it doesn't take that much, right? Like
totally, yeah,
make this feel a little bit more special, right? Like, and then the worst part is right in the middle of the terrible Regal trailer slash commercial that goes on before the film. The screen locked, the video locked completely, and it sat on the same frame of the woman who walks in and says like, "Hey, you guys," and we stared
oh,
at her face for 5 minutes while nothing happened.
Right.
So
There's a commercial in Regal theaters where like everyone tries to be funny and they like do all these like movie quotes.
yes,
Is what Robbie's
and
talking about. Yeah.
literally, like we're halfway through that trailer, and the video froze, and no audio, and it sat that way for like 5 minutes, and the audience is talking, and nobody's like, no one's obviously watching whether or not the film is going off. No one's in the
Hmm.
booth, right? Like, and it goes on. Somebody finally leaves, and about 5 minutes later, the lights go down in the theater. The screen goes black, and then we start the movie. There's no
No
acknowledgement. There's no
apology or
like,
anything.
nope, not at all. Nothing whatsoever.
Wow.
Um,
Weird.
and thankfully that theater, unlike some of the other Regals, when it's very much a black box. So the
Hmm.
picture quality wasn't bad and the sound was okay, but like the experience of going to see this like just made me so angry because I go see a lot of films. I probably
Hmm.
see 8 to 10 films a month, mostly in theaters at least at this point. My wife goes
Yeah.
to 1 or 2 films a month, right? Like at best. And her experience was not great, right? Like, and I just think about the person who may be excited about a film and go see a film, right? Like
Yeah.
Wakanda Forever or Black Adam or any of the films that are about to, like Knives Out, right? Glass Onion,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
people like spend hard-earned money to go see a film they're excited to see, and then their experience is less than optimal. Forget about less than optimal is bad. You've
Hmm.
turned them off. We're trying to get people to go to the movies, right? Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is so we can talk about film that we're excited about, but also to give people more reason to think about going to see movies in the theater. Because I want more
Hmm.
movies in the theater, like everybody who
Yeah.
loves film, right? Um,
Totally.
God, Regal, pull your weight. You're a large company. Help us.
Yeah.
Give us more reasons to want to go see movies in theaters. You
Yeah.
you
I mean, they're
own. There's 3 theaters within driving distance of my house that are
yeah
Regals. I will go out
they're
of my
the
way
second
not to go
largest
there.
movie chain, right?
Yeah,
They're like right. I or are they the largest movie chain? Like, have they surpassed AMC? Right. I would imagine AMC is a little bigger, but
I'm not even sure, but they're definitely like in the top two,
yeah.
maybe the
Yeah.
top three. But like the experience is just not great. Even
Yeah.
AMC near me is a much better experience, and I subscribed to Regal Unlimited and complained about their
Hmm.
like the service, right?
Yeah.
Paying like processing fees for buying tickets through your app is dumb. It's
Especially if
dumb.
you're subscribing. Yeah.
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 That's a benefit that all these services do, right? Like I went and saw Wakanda Forever at Cinemark with my wife, and I am now a subscriber, so I get 1 ticket a month. And when I went to go book our tickets, I had 3 credits. So and I didn't get
Wow.
charged for it being an IMAX, and I didn't they it used 2 of my credits. I paid nothing, and the experience was fantastic, right? Like
Great. Yeah.
I don't understand why Regal, a lot of their theaters seem antiquated and a little on the older side.
Mhm.
And a lot of the theaters, when I go to see films, I tend to go in off hours. I'm one of the few people in the theater. But if you
Yeah.
want people to fill those theaters, you have to give them a reason to be there, right? My
Yeah.
65-inch television with an Atmos soundbar and sound experience is comparable to what I get in the theater sometimes. And when I go to
Yeah.
Regal, I'm like, I would just have been happier getting a 4K at my house, right? And watching it at home.
Yeah. Not so regal, regal. Not
Yeah.
so regal.
Um,
Um,
Last note, I just want to say Hung Chow, I mentioned her earlier. She's having a hell of a year. She's in this, she's in The Whale. I listened to an interview with her. She just had a child last year in 2021, and she expected to take some time off, and she got a bunch of offers to do these films. And she's going to be in the new Wes Anderson film, right? Like she's on such a crazy up. She's in this perfect position of like really becoming the darling of cinema very quickly, and she's great in this film. She's so good in The Whale. I would be surprised if she's not talked about for best supporting actress. She's
mm,
so emotionally moving. She plays his friend and a nurse, and
yeah.
she's so powerful in that movie. And
Yeah.
in this, she just gets to be a part of like a crazy world, and she stands out.
Yeah, she is a very she's a very powerful actress. She doesn't have to say a lot,
Yeah,
and when she says things, you know exactly kind of like what the um what the subtext are. She was so great in the Watchmen miniseries that they
she
did on
was.
HBO.
Yeah, she
She
was
was
Lady
one of
True.
the
She was so
yeah
powerful.
she was definitely one of the standouts of that great series. So yeah, I'm excited to see more from her. And overall, man, yeah, like it doesn't happen often that I don't want to talk about like a movie
Yep.
because I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like it's happened once before, and I can't remember what that movie was that we've talked about, but we were like, we're not going to spoil this one. Um, but also, I guess my final kind of thing about this movie was it's like, yeah, like just like you, like in my normal life, I love seeing movies, but also for the podcast, like we've definitely upped our viewer count of like going to the movies to see them. And it's been a while, I think, since I don't know, like every once in a while you get a movie like this that like really it's an experience.
Yeah.
Like I loved Wakanda Forever. I've only seen it once so far, and I probably should see it a couple more times. Um, Especially because I saw it in like 4D and I did not really enjoy that.
Right.
Um,
You got bruised and thrown around a little bit.
yeah, but this movie uh like Wakanda Forever like hits you in the heart, and that's a
Mhm.
great thing. And a lot of movies hit you in the heart, but like this hits you like in like in the mind, in the brain.
Yeah.
Like there's like it's exciting to like, like have movies where you're like, "Oh my god," like and you start like dissecting it and thinking about it. And it triggers things and you're like in your own life and you're like, "Oh yeah, oh wow, this that." Like, both are very valid movies, but it's been a while since I've seen a movie like this to
My
do that.
wife
So,
brought to the table the other day when we were hanging out with friends. She said the best movie experience I've had this year was The Menu, and like
mm,
that is saying something.
yeah,
She watched a lot of film with me, but in general, like she went and saw Wakanda Forever with me and The Menu, and in that week, she literally said like The Menu was probably the best film experience I've had this year, and
yeah.
that's unreal. Like, and we didn't spend any time talking about her. Anya Taylor Joy in this film is unbelievable. She is the director knows how to use what she brings to the table better than almost like Robert Eggers. She's almost his muse at a lot of the time, and I feel like the director of this film understood how to use Anya Taylor Joy to the most effect. Like, let her be sort of silently in judgment of things. Like when she speaks, make it incisive and biting,
Mhm,
right? Like she has the ability to like reflect back what she's seeing and add an emotion to it. Her level of like annoyance, disgust, frustration, it's obvious without her saying a word. I'm always blown away by Anya Taylor Joy in general, but like I think this film should hopefully push her out to the forefront a little bit more for the mainstream actor, like mainstream movie viewers, that she's to be reckoned with. Right? She was fantastic in Last Night in Soho. Edgar Wright, I felt like really understood how to use that actress. Right? I feel like she's an actress that like is extremely powerful by doing less. And I feel like Robert Eggers
mhm,
understands that also. Like her in The Witch, she's very like her portrayal is very small until it's not, right? And I think in The
mhm,
Northman the same thing. Like she's stoic and quiet until she's not. And I think this movie gets to that. You get a chance to see her like intellectually figuring out what's going on and then finding a path, right?
mhm,
And her internal, she needs no external monologue for you to understand what she's doing. She has little that she has to say, and you understand her motivations, and you none of it felt like it felt very lived in. Her character felt very real.
mhm,
In a very surreal, hyper realistic world, she felt very grounded, and
mm.
not like she didn't belong in this film.
Yeah. I think a lot of I think that she got a lot of notoriety when she did the Queen's Gambit, and I think
Yeah,
like now like the movies that she's been busy making are starting to kind of premiere, and I think I think that she's going to get too busy for Mr. Eggers to have her in his movies
I know.
moving
I
forward.
feel like if we talk a little bit. I steal this from the sort of rewatchables, and if I was going to buy stock in an actor, right? Like, boy, Anya Taylor Joy is first string for me. I can't imagine what she's going to do. Her and Florence Pugh, and there's a few actors that I think no matter what they do, I'm going to watch.
Hmm.
And I'm very excited to see what how she decides to continue to move her career and what she chooses next. But yeah, she's I think got 5 or 6 films that are going to come out between last year and this year.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I think we're ready to rock and roll. Let's call it there, my friend.
yeah, go see the menu, everybody. It's really great. And that's all I got.
Uh, Follow
Now I'm
us all
hungry.
over the place. Go to geekonfilm.com. All our links are in the footer. We look forward to continuing this discussion with you all online. And thank you so much for sticking with us. Go see the menu. Hopefully, we've intrigued you. And have a good week.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
This has been a Geek on Film podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.